to welcome our guest. John Eldredge is a New York Times bestselling author, counselor, and teacher who has inspired millions to go deeper in their relationship with Jesus. And we are going to be talking about his new book today, Experience Jesus, Really. That seems like an appropriate topic for those of us in midlife who are wondering what the heck is going on with all of these changes that are out of our control. Where is God? What is he up to in my life? Does he even notice that these things are happening? And John is going to bring his wisdom. He has really been a guide to many people around the world over the years. He is also president of Wild at Heart, a ministry devoted to helping people discover the heart of God, recover their own hearts in God's love, and learn to live in God's kingdom. John and his wife live right near me in Colorado Springs. Her name is Stacy. And we just learned that they have 8 grandkids that live near them, 3 sons too, I'm guessing 3 daughter-in-laws. But most importantly, 8 grandkids, ages 8 and under, that live right near them. So that is fun. We are welcoming John Eldredge to the Our Time to Rise podcast. Welcome, John.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me, Alex and Krista. Great to be here.
Well, we are very honored to have you. You are a familiar name in our home and to a lot of our listeners. And we are interested in this new book that you have. It really is tackling some of the challenges of what it means to experience Jesus in today's world, in our modern life. So let's just start there. What keeps us from experiencing Jesus today, given the state of the world and just unique circumstances of this moment that we live in?
Right. Yeah. That's a really big question, isn't it? Things that you talk about every show is the answer to that question. It's everything from just the crazy pace, all that's being asked of us from so many directions, to the bigger things, the heartaches, the crises. Yeah. Spread too thin through heartache and crisis. But I think there's a lack of understanding of the invitation as well.
Mm.
The soul is made for union with God. And that's where we derive our strength. That's where we derive comfort, healing of our grief. That's where we get guidance, nourishment, and joy. Like the soul is literally created for union with Jesus. But most of us have not been mentored into that way of sort of doing life, that there is a spiritual life that's available to you. Yep, right there in carpool. Yep, right there at work. Right there as you're dealing with aging parents. Yep, right there. There is a very simple practice of the soul's union with Christ that I am putting out there as kind of a rescue. It's not more busyness. That's not the answer. Do 6 more things and then you're going to be okay spiritually. Like that's not helpful. There's something really very, very simple and very, very beautiful in the soul's union with God.
Mm. I would love to hear what has been your soul journey through the years as you have come to discover this. Like, where did you start and where have you gone?
Yeah, that's a really good question because it kind of helps flesh out, I think, every person's journey. You have the young years of excitement and passion. And let's love people. Let's get involved. Let's serve. And then you hit uh, the 30s and you are just like wiping counters and bottoms and everything. Stacy calls it the wiping years.
And tears. Yeah.
And tears. And it's in those years that I think people begin to experience something of the crisis of the soul. It's like busyness, activity, content is not doing it for me. This is interesting, ladies. I didn't know if you know this, but most women begin their counseling or therapy journey in their 30s. It's when the unresolved issues begin to show up. Well, that was true for me as well. I was raised in an alcoholic home, a lot of childhood trauma. I had never dealt with any of it. And it was beginning to affect my marriage, my parenting. So I'm like, whoa, I have got some seriously unaddressed issues inside. So the 30s for me was the shift from the external to the internal. I went from church and activity and excitement and serve the world and be a young therapist and do those things to an internal journey in my 30s where I discovered God in a very, very sweet way as the healer of my soul. And then I call it like a second conversion. It is the awakened heart. When the heart begins to awaken, wow, that is like walking through the Narnia door. I wrote a book called Sacred Romance, my first book. It's not about marriage. It's that you live in a love story set in a world at war. And the more that your heart kind of can put things in that context, you're like, oh, now I understand the ferocity of it. Now I understand my heart's longings. So then, then there was kind of like the Sacred Romance years and started to write, started to really discover a whole new way of kind of doing God in his intimacy. And then what's taken place, now that was a long time ago. Now I am like a spiritual father, an abbot, and my life has drawn very deeply from the saints down through the ages, the Christian mystics, the tradition of a rich inner life that allows you to sustain the madness of this world. I'm kind of a monk. I live a very monastic life. I really do. I think we have a Facebook account as a ministry. I don't have one, like all that. Like I'm not on a lot of media anymore. I used to tour a lot. I used to speak in churches a lot. I just don't like living in hotels anymore. So yeah, I'm now in the, the fourth quarter, right? And there's a joy to it. I like this stage of life.
That's good. That's encouraging.
I was listening to you talk about your stages. I mean, what I'm hearing you say, just even over the last few minutes, is that in every stage, there's opportunity for union with God. It's available to us. So when you were writing, when you were touring, when you were speaking on stages and staying in hotel rooms, it was as available to you then as it is now. It just looks different than it did before. So can you talk a little bit about that difference? And according to your season, I mean, people are in every different season of life. And for some people in our season, they're in actually the highest demand season. Their career is maybe at the height. Their payments are at the height because they've got college plus houses plus aging parents, right? Like, I mean, for some people right now, they are in the highest demand season actually they've ever been in. So what does that look like, I guess, even through your experience throughout the years, throughout the decades, as you've moved through that? How do you find that connection in those places?
We have to talk a little bit about your way of life, your rule of life, kind of what you do to maintain wellness. Because the pull is to abandon it when life gets busy. But that's actually when you need it most. You need your quiet. You need beauty. You need to move your body. There are just things you need to do. And what happens into the busy years is that we begin to abandon a way of life and just try and live on breadcrumbs. Like, I'll grab this podcast here, I'll get to church when I can, I get a personal moment once in a while, and you just sort of live breadcrumb to breadcrumb, right? It's not a good choice. I think what I want to encourage folks is that you can find a way of life because your habits form you. You are your habits. Who you become is entirely based on your habits. So whatever you choose for yourself, it needs to be sustainable. And everybody knows this, whether it's your weight loss program or your, I'm going to read through the Bible in a year, whatever if it's not sustainable, it doesn't work. It goes. So You look at your current situation. The invitation is to do this in conversation with God. You say, you know my reality. What is your provision? I would suggest that you write down, here is what I do for wellness
Mm.
every day and every week. Here's what I do. I take the dogs for a walk every day. That's part of my wellness. Because I know if I don't do that for a week, I'm not good. And you just start writing these things. I need quiet. I need 20 minutes of quiet every day. What is your rule of life? You lay it out. That's what I would do.
Mm. Yeah, I think you're right that we do know this and we have to keep coming back to it over and over. And life offers so many opportunities for distraction. And to say, well, this moment is too big, this crisis is too big, it trumps my need for that in this moment. And I hear you saying it doesn't.
Well,
it,
it's just the opposite because
mhm,
of that crisis,
mhm,
because your career just took off or you just lost your job. Because of that, because see, here's the thing, when pressure and crisis hit, you do not rise to your aspirations. You fall to the baseline of your preparation. Okay. When stress comes or crisis hits, you don't rise to your aspirations for your
mhm,
life. You fall to your baseline of preparation. You fall to
So
your
good.
rule of life. You fall to what you do to sustain yourself. I want to add a different practice. This one's a lifesaver. So we developed something called the Pause app. And it guides people through like a 1 minute pause every day, a
mhm,
3 minute, 5 minute pause. Learning to do this, learning to practice benevolent detachment.
mhm,
Every single day, you've got to let it all go. I mean it. There are several moments a day now where I just pause and go, I give it all to you, God. I release it completely to you. Your soul is not actually meant to carry stuff.
Mm.
And we saddle the heart and soul with so much news, information, media, heartache, trauma, drama that after a while, man, you are just sucking for air. You're like, just let me come up for air. But actually, you can do something really wild in the midst of the crazy. You just eject emotionally, you just pull out.
mhm,
60 seconds, 3 minutes, you just pull out and go, you know what? I just release all this, God. I give all this to you. This is 1 Peter 5:7. Cast your cares upon the Lord because he cares for you. This one practice has saved me maybe more than anything else
Wow.
because my life is actually very, very full. I run a ministry. I
Mhm.
still do some counseling work. We have a full family life. We have 8 grandchildren, and then all the heartaches and stuff with that, right? Parents passing away and all that miscarriages and heartache. You've got to learn benevolent detachment where you just let it go.
Mm.
mm,
I was just thinking about this whole idea. I was talking with a friend about the nervous system and
Mm.
about, how if your body isn't regulated, it's really hard to cognitively make any healthy decisions or even to have some semblance of calm in your mind. And then the opposite is true. When your body is calm, it's actually hard for your mind to be anxious because your body, those tend to align. So I would just love to even hear what have been some of your physical practices that have enabled your nervous system to calm down and have that kick in as an aid for some of that also.
Your gals are going to love this. They're going to love this. You need a kitchen spoon and a trash can
Okay.
where you go wail on that thing to get it out of your body.
mhm,
Ooh,
Your
okay.
body is carrying so much. You are carrying anger. you're
Mhm.
carrying fear, and you're just carrying a ton of stress, right? Yeah, you could go run 5 miles, or you could take a kitchen spoon into a trash can and wail on it for 30 seconds, and you literally are getting it out of your body. Okay.
Mm.
So honestly, it's one of my favorites. I take a little piece of plastic to our recycling bin, and it works. Some of the other, yeah, I know. Try it. You'll see.
I'm trying it, John. I'm doing
Yeah.
Mm.
Well, I'm just thinking there's a whole new industry with these smash rooms, right?
I should have copyrighted this.
Mhm.
Yes, totally. I was telling people to do this before those rooms came up.
Yeah, you're ahead of the curve, and it's much more accessible and affordable to do
It's
it
it.
3 times a day in your own
free.
home.
Totally. Yes. Or if things get extreme, go to the thrift store, buy a
Mhm.
bunch of cheap dishes and break them.
Yeah.
Wow.
Break them.
We actually did that when one of my girls had a bad breakup. We got out the safety goggles,
Yep.
the hammer, and dishes that I was done with,
Yes.
and went outside and had a smash session.
Yeah. Okay. Now let me give you a couple other things. One of God's greatest gifts to the modern moment are noise canceling headphones. I turn them on. I put on beautiful instrumental music, not lyrics, something that I can just get quiet with. I love William Augusto's stuff, by the way. So if you want to Spotify William Augusto, he's got all this great stuff that's just very centering prayer, contemplative prayer kind of stuff. I do that every day, usually in the evening when I'm trying to wind down. I'm trying to come down out of the drama, put my headphones on, put that on, practice benevolent detachment. The walk with the dogs is a real thing. That's my morning. Early in the morning, take the dogs for a walk, take in beauty, take in nature, right? Let your body move, come down. And then the other thing is, I just began to notice how much I was trying to live on caffeine and dark chocolate to get me through the day.
Mhm.
And it works and it doesn't work. And so I had to back off of stimulants because, like you were saying, Krista, you just get your body anxious,
Mhm.
and then your head get anxious, right? Then your thoughts get anxious. Then you feel like, wow, I'm anxious. No, you're not anxious. You're on caffeine.
Mhm.
You're actually
Mhm.
fine. You just ramped yourself up. Yes. So, and I pause 3 times a day to pray, like Daniel did. I pause in the morning to pray, I pause in the noontime to pray, I pause in the evening to pray.
So, John, you have a new book, as we mentioned, Experience Jesus Really. And I like the really because we sure do talk about that a lot. And then feels like things don't really change, or it feels surfacey, maybe not very deep. In the book, you talk about the path of the ordinary mystic. Can you explain what you mean by that?
Yeah, I need to because people are going to freak out. So I began to read the lives of the saints down through the ages, Protestant, Catholic, Orthodox saints, just men and women who loved God down through the ages. It's fascinating to read their teaching, but also read about their lives. And the absolute one central common denominator is they had a very deep personal life with God. Like they knew God
Hmm.
uh, in a way that you know your best friend, in a way that you know your spouse, the way you know your kids. They speak out of such a rich familiarity. And the more that I pushed into that, I realized, oh my gosh. So in our modern moment, we have a way overdeveloped left brain because of the internet, because of content, because of science. We really believe if you understand something intellectually, you're good,
Hmm.
right? But that is not the same thing as a deep, intuitive, experiential knowing, right? I can tell you about Stace, my wife. I can tell you she's 65. I can tell you that she's got green eyes, that she's a great, great person to be around. You kind of know her, but you don't really know her. But if she were to
Mhm.
walk into your home, you would have an experience that you go, oh, now I get it. Now I get it. And that is actually supposed to be the normal Christian experience, that you are meant to have a regular, I want to call it daily, but it might not be daily, weekly at least, experience a right brain, intuitive, heart knowledge, sensory experience of God.
Mm.
Because when Jesus says things like this, he says, I am the bread of life. And you're like, go on. He says, I actually want to nourish your humanity. You need nourishment. When he says, I'm the vine, you're the branch, he's describing a kind of intimacy that is actually healing our humanity. Well, that, folks, that's an experience. If you, yeah, that's not just, oh, I got those 3 principles. Thank you so much.
Mhm.
Okay, I'm going to go put that to work. And I chose the word ordinary mystics to kind of, sort of shake people up a little bit, to say, you, disciple of the internet, think that left brain apprehension of things is the answer, and it ain't. You need literally to experience the presence of God healing your humanity.
Mhm.
That's the good stuff.
Mm. I read this book, Interior Freedom. Do you know that book?
No.
It's written by a Catholic priest, Jacques Philippe, who I have just become a big fan of over the last few years. And he describes Saint Teresa de Lisieux. I'm not sure I'm saying that right, but he was a student of her writings. And when they went and actually saw where she was when she was dying and when she was sick, they were floored. They couldn't believe it, because the way she described her surroundings was this expansive, beautiful, like flower, just scattered place. And when they went and saw where she actually was, it was tiny and cramped, and it just was totally different. But I think what's so fascinating about it is it was her interior freedom that was creating spaciousness, not her environment. And that just struck me of, wow, can we really create that inside of us, that there is spaciousness even when there's not?
Yes,
Mhm.
the answer is yes. Guys, this is it. This is Narnia. The inside is bigger than the outside. Your internal world is actually already quite vast. You're just unaccustomed to it because you don't know the practice of dropping into your own heart to be with Jesus. So here's a fun question. When you are praying, if you pray, where is God? Where is he located? The God to whom you are praying, Father, Jesus, Holy Spirit, is he up in the heavens? And you are, sort of firing these, arrows you're hoping or reaching. Is he the Jesus by your side, which is lovely and better. But gang, here's the wild thing. The human heart now that has invited Christ is the new temple. The dwelling place of God is in the heart of his friends and followers. There's a lovely French Catholic mystic, Madame Guyot, Jean Guyot, who was arrested for her faith. And she talks about in her book, Union with Christ, she says, you must learn to descend into your heart, to meet with Jesus every day. Because once you're with him there, yes, he can comfort you, guide you, nourish you. He can heal your trauma. He can. And so, yeah, what that idea of the inside's bigger than the outside. Her internal world was lovely. It was beautiful because it was filled with the presence of God. Yeah.
Mm. So it makes me think of this is going to sound funny. The actress Drew Barrymore. I recently heard her talk about her move to sobriety. So she stopped drinking and she said, I wanted to make more space in my life for other things. So if we're talking about the internal life and this spaciousness, is part of it the discipline of removing things
Mhm.
so that there is enough space and it doesn't have to be drinking, but just this idea of we may be filling it with things that are taking up a room that don't deserve to have room there.
Yes.
What is the practice that a woman might do to
Yes.
consider in her life what is taking up space that doesn't deserve the space there?
Yeah. So Stacy calls it the garden of your heart. Every human heart is like a garden, and you cultivate it or you don't. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And the way we cultivate the garden of our heart, again, this is all ancient practices, guys. Let's start with forgiveness. You start forgiving people. You literally begin kind of a rule of life, a practice of, I forgive you for that. Instead of holding grudges and resentments and anger, didn't they understand me? They totally mishandled what I said. And all that stuff, man, that'll just clutter the internal world, right? I forgive you. We talked about benevolent detachment, practice of release. I just release that. I'm just not going to carry that. I get stubborn. I literally say things like, I kick that out of my heart. I kick that out. You can't have my heart. As stuff tries to get real estate within me, right? Grudges or fear, worry about the future. Oh, no, you can't have my heart, right? That's one piece. But at the same time, what we're doing is we're saying, Jesus, would you please fill the garden of my heart? Meet me in my internal world. I want to experience your love. I want to experience, because this is Ephesians 3, right? Paul says that Christ may fill your hearts, right? Your heart is the new temple. It is the dwelling place of God. We kick stuff out, fear, bitterness, anxiousness, anger, and we invite him in and we say, commune with me here. Meet me here. How do you do that? I'll give you another very simple practice. And I recommend this. You just begin the simple practice of loving God. You're driving down the road. You're in traffic and you just tune out the traffic and you turn into your inner world and you just say, I love you. I love you. I love you here. But especially in your places of difficulty, you go into the fear and you say, I love you here. I love you right here. You go into your anger and you go, I love you here. I love you right here. Because this is the heart opens to the presence of God as you love him. And the heart closes to the presence through fear and harm. And it's like the sea anemone, it goes, well, you've got to open that back up. And you do that by walking right into those places. And you say, I love you here. I love you here. Meet me here. I love you in this place.
It's the opposite of what we think. We think if we ignore it, if we push it under the rug, if we don't think about it very hard, then that's going to make it go away. And what I hear you saying, it's the opposite. It's acknowledging, it's calling it out and inviting God right into the heart of that space.
Yes.
Is that true?
100%. Yeah. Or we wait, we think, well, I'll deal with that with my counselor, or I'll work through that with my journaling, and then I'll be in a good place to commune with God. And you go, when's that? That is in some distant future, that it's not now. We need him now. And so you walk right into the stuff. I love you here. Meet me here. I love you here. Meet me here. And he will.
Which is why when big life circumstances happen that are so beyond our control, we often have a huge spiritual growth because we are dependent on God in a new way, in a different way. But we don't need to wait for that, is what you're saying. That in these stressors that feel like I can kind of hold it together, I can hold it together and white knuckle my way through it.
Yes.
We don't have to get to the crisis point to have this spiritual intimacy and growth. We can step in and allow God in that space.
That's
right there.
That's right. Because one of the heartbreaks about those big breakthroughs is they don't last. And we come down from them. And you go, what happened? It was so beautiful. It was like, man, we were in the worst time in our life and I felt God so near. And the answer is partly, well, you went back to your habits.
Mm-hmm.
And your habits have no room for God. You're a busy, distracted person. You take in too much media, you spend too much time on your phone, you're full of fear and anger and rage. And so part of it is just, well, you fell back to your baseline, right? The idea of you don't rise to your aspirations, folks. You fall to your baseline of preparation, which is your habits. So again, we just come back to what are your habits that allow your soul to be in a good place, even if it's for 20 minutes a day. That's okay. That's a good start.
Can we camp a little bit on this idea of benevolent detachment? That's what you
Yeah.
called it, right?
Yes.
So, benevolent detachment, sometimes we can interpret that as we are separating ourselves from our emotions,
Mm.
or we are not acknowledging what's true.
Mm.
So, can you just dive a little bit more into what is it? And also, how does it actually honor our emotions?
Yes. Let me do that by coming in a different doorway. So there's a body of research now, everybody knows that anxiety and depression rise in direct correlation to the amount of time you spend on social media. Okay, that's a given.
Mm-hmm.
So you just would go, well, why would you do that to yourself? Like, wait a second, something is influencing, and it's the burden of the world. Okay. The British anthropologist Robin Dunbar did this fascinating study on human beings are designed to live in villages of about 150 people.
Mm.
That and it's perfect church size. It's around that as well. Like there's those studies because you're just not meant to carry the heartache of the world. And so when you read about the atrocities in the Sudan and then you flip on and here's what's going on in Ukraine, that kind of thing, your soul actually begins to carry all that. And it was never even meant to know about it. Okay.
Mm.
So there has to be a way in which you just gently give all that over to God. And I call it benevolent detachment. Benevolent because it's not something done in cynicism. It's not done in anger or bitterness. It's actually done in love. Detachment because my yoke is easy, my burden is light. There is an invitation to take every one of your cares and give them to God every single day. Like not just once in a moment of trauma, or crisis, you just lost your beloved grandmother, every single day. God, I can't carry this, especially at bedtime. If you want to sleep well, practice this at bedtime. You just say, Lord, I give you the day. I gave you the email I should not have sent. I shouldn't have sent that. I give you the unfinished conversation with my daughter. I give you that. I just release all this to you. I'm not angry. I'm not bitter. I'm not checking out. I'm just literally not meant to carry it. Okay. And I find that as I name these things, particularly at bedtime, I am very in touch with my emotions. I'm naming what my day was like. God, I am so angry at that person. I release them to you because there isn't a darn thing I can do about that right now. And then, Lord, I so wish that would have gone better. Okay, I give that to you. And this is back to what Alex was saying was, how do you make room in your heart for God? Well, it's like this. I'm just giving things over. I'm giving things over. And I am uncluttering my soul so that there is room in there for the presence of Jesus. By the way, we do have an app for this. I need to give this out. It's free. It's called the Pause app, and people can download it, iPhone, Android. Folks, it's gorgeous. There's music and guided prayer, but it is this simple. It's just guiding you in pausing, a couple times a day. You can choose when you want to do it. You go, oh, I want to do it at 6 and 8, 6 a.m., 8 p.m. or whatever. And then your phone will remind you, hey, take your pause and you do this, right? And then you get into the groove of it and your soul gets used to it. These are our habits, right? You get used to letting things go. You're not checking out. You're just going, I was never meant to carry that. Too big for me. That back to your thing about people in big, big crises and the nearness of God. They're at the end of their rope.
Mm-hmm.
They know they can't carry it.
Right.
Yes, so they're not trying to. And then suddenly, boy, here's the presence of God who's been there all along.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I sometimes get stuck then in, okay, God, I give this to you, but I still have decisions I need to make about it, or I still have to figure out the problem.
Yep.
And what's helped me is the concept of, God, give me today my daily bread. Like, I'm going to trust you then to give me what I need just for now, even though I can get ahead of myself about what's going to need to be done 2 months from now, 2 years from now, 20 years from now.
Yep.
That's my 3 a.m.
Yep.
mind that's going. And to say, okay, God, I'm just going to trust you. I'm giving it to you. And I'm going to trust that you're going to provide for me what I need today, and to not get ahead of myself, because he's holding all of time and I want to join him in the future, and I live in the present.
That's beautiful. That's really good. This is the secret of why God never gives anybody the plan for their life. People ask for it. Lord, what am I supposed to do with my life? What am I supposed to do in the next 5 years? He won't tell you.
Yep.
Because you will go do it without him.
Mm.
Thank God, thy word is a lamp unto my feet. You get a little bit of light, folks. You get the next couple steps. That is a mercy, not a frustration. That is kindness. And I just reached the point that, do you wish that God had told you now what your life would be like? No way, man. Like, if he had told me, I'd have been overwhelmed. You know, I've lost 2 best friends. I've lost grandchildren. I mean, I would never have wanted to known all this heartache. You only want today and what you're doing with him right now. This is also true, by the way, in your issues. Okay. I'll often just ask God, what are we working on? Because I'm a house under renovation. There's way too much inside of me that needs transformation. You can't take it all on, folks. What are we doing right now, Papa? Well, right now we're working on your resentment. Okay. All right. Well, then I'm going to let all the other stuff go and we'll focus on the resentment. Crawl, walk, run.
Wow. That question is so beautiful. I am going to adopt that question. What are we working on right now? I've adopted the question of, God, what do you want me to know today? What do you want me to know? I do like that one as well, but I feel like that one gets a little bit more to the heart of what's tripping me up at the moment.
Yes. Okay. So I know you didn't ask me this question, but I'm going to riff on it anyway. God's project with you is wholeheartedness. The gospel of Jesus Christ is centered in the restoration of your humanity for a number of reasons. But among them is, it is your yet unintegrated places, your yet unhealed places, your yet unholy places. That's where you're vulnerable. That's where the enemy and the world are going to totally take you out. That's why you keep falling back to your stuff, is because there are things in you that are unhealed and not yet whole. That's where God's working, I guarantee it. And so the more we can cooperate with him in the restoration of our hearts and in genuine wholeheartedness, the better it's going to go for everything else. Stuff doesn't trigger you anymore. Big stuff doesn't throw you. Like, you just go, I'm okay. I'm well. Like, I have a genuine inner wellness. I'm okay. Okay. So everybody's going, yes, that. Well, here's the beautiful thing. And Leanne Payne, that lovely healer of the soul, her little saying, her little maxim was, the soul is healed through union with Christ. The soul is healed through union with Christ. It really is. And so why I was saying, get Jesus into the ugly stuff, get Jesus into the fear, get Jesus in, is because the soul is healed through union with Christ. If you are cultivating union, he will heal your soul. It's the union that does it. Okay. That's lovely. And guys, you know when his favorite time to do this to me? It's like around 4 a.m. He'll wake me up and or some anxiety will wake me up, something, and I'm just lying there. And so what I start doing is Jesus here. Jesus right here. Come right here. Meet me here. All right, I'm aware of it. I am present to this unhealed thing in me. Come here. I love you right now in this moment. I love you here. And you let Christ in. He's great at this.
Hmm. You know what I love about that? So, the same book, Interior Freedom, he talks about we often have three responses to challenges. The first one is rebellion against it. We don't want it. The second one is resignation, where we become a victim to it, or we consent, which is the healthy one, which is that radical acceptance.
Mm.
And I was thinking about, like, in that moment, you're practicing in a pretty practical way radical acceptance as well. And that's when we can move through it, whatever it is. We can then in that moment move through it with God. And
Yes.
then not only does that bring us closer together with God, but it furthers us on our emotional journey as well.
Yeah. The soul is healed through union with Jesus.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So, John, what would you say has been the one practice that you have taken through your decades, the one practice that you feel like has stood the test of time in your life that has brought you into that union place?
Mm. Well, on the simplest level, it's morning and evening prayer. I mean, I just love it. I can't live without it. And if I skip it for a day or two, I begin to really pay. I'm short with people, all that morning and evening prayer. And then the content of those prayers have really matured over time. But again, I think it was the thing we were just talking about. It is giving Jesus access. Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If anyone open the door, I will come in. And what he describes there, and we will have a meal together, it's intimacy. We will linger together. Well, he's knocking through your addiction. He's knocking through the loss of your job. He's knocking through your daughter's anxiety disorder. Those are the things he's knocking through to gain access to the deeper places in our hearts. The door opens from the inside. This is one of the secrets of the human soul. The door opens from the inside. This is that consent thing. You choose whether or not you're going to open this door and say, please come in. Please come into this. And that practice over time has been utterly transformational. Learning to say, yes, I open the door to this to you, giving him access to the things he's trying to get access to, it's utterly healing.
Thank you so much for this conversation, John. The journey between the head to the heart is so short, but it's so long sometimes. We get so stuck in our thinking, unproductive thinking. And for that to transfer, it can't happen outside of time. It feels like that we have to invest that time with God. That is our most important real estate. So, as we are closing today, I mean, as people want to travel that distance from their head to their heart and experience God really, like really, what would be your final charge to them?
Your internal world is not going to overwhelm you. It isn't. You're going to be okay. I know it feels like either the grief is going to overwhelm you or the fear is going to overwhelm, and that's why we avoid it. You can go there. You can learn to be very familiar with your heart. You can do that. It will not overwhelm you. Instead, it is the place that you will meet God.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So helpful. John, thank you for just the work you've done over many years to help people to cultivate the garden of their soul. It is invaluable work and we've all benefited. So thank you from the
Thanks.
bottom of our hearts.
Yeah, you're very welcome. It's a joy.